What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel and Mark Show, brought to you by Hardcore Headstart. As usual, Marky and I have, again, we have a little bit of an idea of what we're going to talk about. But first of all, Marky's got the trim of the year, boys. He went out and finally got his haircut. So tell us who your barber is so I can go as well, because this shit looks like...
So I've just moved into a new place, and I thought I could just pop down and get a cut. I should have known better with the long weekend coming up. I came in and the girl behind the counter was like, come back at 7. So this was like 4 hours later.
What the hell?
But they must have had extended trading, because I don't think I've been to a barber that's, been open after 5:30. So yeah, went down, got a cut, and it's just the one up the road. So I figured I'd give it a try. If it's good, I'll come back, and it's walking distance. So, pretty impressed, I got to say. They've got a good little setup down there. But more importantly, mate, let's talk about your massive achievement yesterday. What was it like completing a 42-kilometer marathon?
Well, it was hard. It was wild, bro. It was wild. It was probably, not probably, it was the hardest thing mentally and physically I've ever had to do.
Yeah. Do you want to paint a picture of what inspired the run and what were the events of yesterday? Maybe let's give a recap of how that day started, or even the night before.
Yeah, cool. So the night before, we were talking, the boys in the house, we were talking about going for, a little 11-kilometer jog, just kind of expanding the wheel battery a little bit. G and Sama's previous record of the furthest ever run was 10 kilometers, right? So one of the things where we always try to do is expand our battery, expand our, willpower battery, expand our horizon, expand our mindset. So we thought, we'll go for 11 kilometers. We'll see what we can do. Now, the Hardcore Headstart way is always, in the back of my head, Dylan has done this to me many times, where 11 kilometers, you can essentially double it. All right. Yeah. So in my head, I'm thinking, all right, we're probably doing a half marathon. So still no real plans of like what it is we're actually going to do. So yeah, the next day we find out all the power. I wake up, all the power is off. My laptop is dead. I've got meetings I can't even get into, no internet, nothing. So we decide we got nothing else better to do.
How was that for the weather? Like the winds that were running all night. I don't know if you slept through it, and then the rain that followed the morning after.
Slept like a baby, first of all. Didn't even know anything was going on. But
trampolines are flying on like cars, and like roofs are coming off, and just sound asleep.
I slept like a baby. Didn't even know. But yeah, so we're filming this on Saturday, ran the marathon with the boys Friday. And that was the day, as Marky's kind of alluding to, where trampolines are flying everywhere. There's trees being ripped out of the ground because of the wind, etc. So, and it's just, it just rained pretty much all day. So, not the best day for just being outside in general, really.
Also not a great day to be inside where you got no power and you can't do much.
Yeah. I mean, it was just one of those days where we had nothing to, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything. So we decided, why not go for a run? And it kind of evolved along the journey into a marathon.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm, excuse my pun, for the hardcore mental barrier buster.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, cool. So you guys set out on this 11-kilometer run. What was talk me through what it was like through the different stages of the run, at least in your mind. So how would you kind of split up the run in terms of how you remember it?
So I've obviously done a half marathon a little bit further than that previously. So I kind of knew the pain and the mental fortitude necessary to get to that point. and I wasn't too concerned. I was like, all right, I can get this done. Conditions, although windy and raining, were cool, which means my body's temperature is going to regulate effectively, and it's probably going to be a touch easier than if it was hot because I'm not sweating as much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then the 8 in between, kind of, the first 14 Ks, in between like 8 and 14 or 8 and 12, whatever it was, felt really, really good, like in flow, really comfortable. And then we ended up having a quick drink in Clayton, just with the water tap there, and we stopped just a touch too long. Where if you're doing any kind of exercise, the lactic acid starts building up and the muscles start kind of relaxing a little bit. So it was probably a misstep on our part to relax for a little bit too long there, when it comes to taking a drink. And then we set back out, and then the next to the half marathon was it was a real grind to get there to the half marathon. Still, again, I ran it before, so I knew what kind of pain was coming, so it wasn't too bad. And then after the half marathon, I kind of I was in a really, really good place, no problem. It was obviously, everything was painful, but the mental, I hadn't really had a break in the mental fortitude at that point at all. So I was feeling really, really good. And then around 34 kilometers, I can just remember my body feeling like, what the fuck are you doing? And the last 7 kilometers was some of the hardest shit I've ever done. So yeah, not fun. That's kind of the breakdown.
Dude, that's like, first off, like, massive kudos on your first marathon. So milestone. I feel like it's kind of like where we're all like setting our own Guinness World Records. You know what I mean? Like, every time we do something like this. So I think it's kind of cool. Massive effort. And it's interesting to see you sort of describe like how those different stages were. Getting past that first, by the sounds of things, the first half of it wasn't too bad, and you still had that flow state that carried you across. But that last sort of 7, 8 Ks was like from 34 Ks onward was really fun. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, man, absolutely. The last 7 Ks. Whew, tell you what, I'm not. It still surprises me a little bit of how we actually went and got that done, because that was a lot of pain. There was a lot of pain in there.
Yeah. Because I feel like, let's say if you regularly ran, so let's say once a week or every other week you run a half marathon, you'd either push yourself by picking up the pace or running a bit further. And for someone running like 21, 22, 23, 24 Ks, they might try to push for that closer to 30, but then that would be kind of like, hey, I've gone sort of, I've pushed more than I set out to push, but you guys have just gone and like doubled your maximum.
Yeah.
So
like we went.
I think
went
like
mental.
that's I reckon it's a huge effort.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. What was what did you draw on, and how did you push through the most difficult part of the run, the last sort of 7 or 8 Ks?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you're right. The first 34 were obviously difficult because it's 34 kilometers, for Christ's sake. Like, it's hard. But there was only one real kind of break in my mental fortitude there, where it was like, oh, damn, this is getting hard throughout that period. The rest I was really quite comfortable with. I really felt like I was going to finish it. There was no problems. And then, yeah, at 34, the last 7 kilometers were kind of, I had to really draw on, being an inspiration for kind of my family. I had to draw on a little bit of ego. I was like, not many people do a marathon. I'm out here doing a marathon. I'm a savage, et cetera, et cetera.
You are.
And then one thing that I remember us saying quite clearly is we are out here, like we're all four of us and well, three of us and then G incredibly soon. We're all lucky enough to not have to go to, a job, right?
Yeah.
Which means during the day, like during a Friday afternoon, people are working. Like we are lucky to be able to even run this marathon, right? And that's just a
Mm.
very small part of it, let alone the fact that like some people have disabilities where they're simply, it's not even like even if they train, they won't ever be able to run a marathon. So for us to just have working legs, working eyes, working everything, like it's not so much like a kind of, yeah, it's just like it's really lucky for us to even have the not the ability, but like the kind of chance to even run a marathon, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So a lot of
I think,
perspective as well.
yeah, I think definitely like pretty lucky in that sense. And one of the things that I noticed, sort of with you lads living in the same household, you've got the camaraderie, and you've got that kind of support for each other during the runs, right? So I imagine doing that same run on your own would be infinitely more difficult, just because, like let's face it, like running's great and like it's good for mental fortitude, but it can get repetitive and boring because you're just kind of there in your mind doing the same motion. But it's rewarding when you get to the end, I think, and knowing that you've pushed through it through that sort of monotony. Like,
Mm.
so I think it's kind of good. Do you want to sort of maybe, because one of the ways you guys support each other is you kind of make things funny, you kind of motivate each other, and like you kind of like get each other all G'd up. Yeah, like do you have any sort of funny stories from yesterday that you can think of, like along the run, that kind of comes to mind as you guys were pushing on this, arduous, like really difficult task?
Yeah. So I guess it begins at the start. Like I said, we didn't plan to go and do a marathon, right? So we
Yeah.
planned 11 kilometers. In my head, probably a half marathon, which then kind of leaves the joke open of like once you finish 1 kilometer of like, here we go, boys, 40 to go, you know, 42 to go.
Naturally.
Naturally, which started really early and kind of planted the seed, I guess, of the potential opportunity to do a marathon here.
Mm.
And then there's just all around gas bagging from us of like talking shit, just laughing, yelling, scream and go large because that's our tagline. All that kind of stuff. Just
The usual shenanigans on the runs.
yeah, just motivating people, pumping them up. Like everyone goes through phases where things are like really difficult,
Yeah.
especially like on that run. Like everyone has a different kind of athletic ability and different mental fortitude levels, meaning
Mm.
you sometimes you need to pump up your boys when they're in a little bit of a hole because you can get into a hole running.
Oh, 100%.
Incredibly difficult to keep going. So to have kind of the boys there of like all around each other and be like, yo, let's go. Don't stop,
Mm.
don't stop, don't stop. And yeah, one of the other things is it's a little bit egotistically driven, but for me, kind of preaching out, hey, like if we get this done, it's like eternal glory. Like I know it's crazy, but not a lot of people run a marathon. Nowadays, more commonplace, but it's still very difficult, especially with zero training.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so
A little bit a little bit like the Vikings, like if we fight and die, we go to Valhalla. So like
yeah,
let's fight. Let's just run for eternal glory.
yeah, exactly. So like it's also good for content as well. Of
Yeah.
like kind of we all the time we put out in the world, hey, you need to have a strong mind, you need to be able to go through a lot,
Mm.
to run the kind of distances that we all ran yesterday. It's kind of just a
Mm.
testament to that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's an interesting dynamic, right? Like whether you run on your own, you run in pairs, or you run in a group, because it's different in the sense that when you're on your own, you're forced to draw only on your own experiences. And then when you run in a duo, you're kind of potentially like influenced by the weaker runner of the two. So like you're there kind of like that can be the sort of the weakest link. But when you got like four runners and three of them are kind of more athletic, the weakest link in the four has the support of like three people. But then at some point, you're drawing on like one or two people sort of motivating the rest of the group, and kind of, you've got that collective fortitude because you're all going, look, any sort of negativity, any sort of like, oh, we can't do this, gets flushed out straight away.
Yeah. And there was certainly periods in between, like even with us, there was certain periods in there where people were just frustrated.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to do this.
Understandably.
Absolutely.
Understandably, like 3 hours into a run, 2 hours into a run.
You're like, fuck, I don't want to do this shit anymore. Like, this is just absurd. Like, it's easier for me to stop. But one of the messages we push is, yeah, it might be easy, but it's not beneficial.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of things in life that are hard. That's what makes them beneficial to go and do them. So
Yeah.
just seek out the hard things in life, because there's going to come a time in your life that you won't actually see coming, that is just going to be difficult. And if you have no practice with hard things, you're not going to be able to actually achieve and push through it.
Yeah,
So
100%.
we're in preparation for black swan events all the time. We're in preparation for things we can't see coming.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I think difficult experiences give people color. So I think being prepared for it and collecting those experiences gives you the confidence, and it also gives you that ambition to strive for even bigger, more challenging things. Right? Like you get addicted to those challenges. Let's change gears a little bit. What other experiences have really tested your more mental fortitude or felt like hell? Can you think of any sort of other experiences? I know running is a really good one and most people can relate to it, but drawing like on other life experiences, can you think of anything else that comes to mind when you go, fuck, like that took a bit of, sort of keeping myself together?
Yeah. I guess kind of like in the early days when my knowledge level was not as high, kind of not understanding the swings of the stock market, and then my investments, especially being in crypto for so many years. It's kind of like when you lose a lot of, well, in my case, you lost pretty much six figures in a very, very short amount of time. It's like, what the fuck?
Is
So
this the
20,
2018
yeah,
crash? Yeah.
2018, 2017, which didn't affect me as much because I didn't feel like that was my money, because Dylan was and still is such a major impact. But, that was really just me listening to him. It wasn't, me using my brain at all. But it was still like, there's still tangible money there that we lost. So that was difficult. And then there's just kind of, working in the 9 to 5, there's a certain amount of stress that I've been in stressful jobs. The grind itself of like getting to the first 100K, like I've been so fatigued. Like working at Nando's in the back kitchen, like for that amount of hours with the amount of, like, it was sometimes 50 degrees back out there, which was hot as hell. That felt harder to me than running that marathon, because it was like
Yeah.
day in, day out. It was all the time. So
It's the slow burn, isn't it? Like, yes, this is kind of a slow burn over 5 or 6 hours, but the other one is kind of like a slow burn over many days, over many months, over, a few years.
yeah.
So
So
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, to be able to go and do that, that was difficult. What else we got?
Well, before we move on, I suppose like with sort of the mental fortitude side, right? Not so much the money and like what you learnt from the experiences of sort of going through that sort of crash. But what do you think you learnt from from a mental point of view when it came to that crash? Like, is there something that you feel like you can apply, like sort of going forward from that, from a mental perspective, like from resilience or from like along
Yeah.
those lines?
Preparation.
Yeah.
So I spoke about like literally just then about like black swan events and kind of always preparing for something you can't see,
Yeah.
like that, being always prepared for every single circumstance and then the variable, that is kind of something that I've taken from that. It's like, that's why it's so important to, even when you're in a healthy position or a strong position, to keep pushing,
Yeah.
because there's always something more you can't see coming. So if you can't see it coming, how are you going to prepare for it? You prepare as much as possible in every area of your life so that you are best able to deal with any situation that comes.
It's funny, like preparing for like any situation that comes, like extreme preparation, what you're talking about here, right? I just thought of David Goggins as you're talking, and he's just like, one of the things that fascinates me is he imagines anything and everything that can go wrong, right? So it's like, if you're setting out, whether it's financially or on this 42K, you just imagine where you're going to break down. You think to yourself, all right, this is probably where I'm going to break down. These are the thoughts I'm going to have. And you prepare yourself with the other side of it while you're fresh before you've gone on that journey. Same with like finances and stuff. All right, the market's going to crash this much. I'm going to imagine my portfolio down this much. My investments are down this much. Okay, cool. How am I going to feel and how am I going to tackle that? That sort of extreme preparation.
Yeah. Investing, we talk about not thinking about the upside, think about the downside more. Right.
Focus on that first.
You want to think about what you're going to lose. So I never want to be in the position where I'm going to risk too much, speaking financially, and just in running in general. Like I don't want to risk so much. I don't want to lose everything. So I want to prepare so I don't have to. I don't want to lose my life running, right? So I prepare in order for that not to happen. And preparing is in running? No, because it's like people are not aware of what kind of humans themselves are capable of. Right. So my body may not be in the best condition of all time, but I still will be able to go out and run a marathon, clearly, because I went and did it. Right. And I could probably do more kilometers than that, but it's the mental fortitude preparation that the thing is so much more important.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That's massive, man. I think there's so much to learn from this. Like the things that come to mind is, prepare for, the long term. People always say this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. But you get results that compound over a longer period of time. So, the things that you stick out, right, become worthwhile because the results over a long time, usually show themselves. But in the short term, they can kind of seem trivial. So, like, for example, doing our podcast, doing the Hardcore Headstart podcast, at times there might be little doubts, or like there'll be times where you're like, this is amazing, right? But, the net impact is not always easily calculated in the short term. So the more long term, you just kind of see, you look back and you go, all right, it kind of makes sense, like why I stuck out 5 hours when I could have stopped at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
exactly. Like, yeah, no, I don't know. I do know. It's a crazy achievement being able to run a marathon. It was certainly on my bucket list as well.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, no one in my family, Samir said as well last night, I was like, no one in his family's ever run a marathon. I'm sure it's, the other boys as well. So kind of like we pride ourselves on being the first to kind of go and do big things, especially in my family. It's just kind of another testament to that, is like, we're changing the game. We're changing this generation. We're changing the culture. So let's go get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think like you touched on something interesting around the investments earlier. So like, sort of it's a good idea. You hear the adage of, take risks while you're young. Like it's where you've got the most upside. But at the same time, you think about compounding, and I think it was Josh Finance or whatever on Instagram that kind of talks about this other perspective of, yes, like taking risks is okay when you're young, but it also is opportunity cost of compounding that money that you've now potentially lost if
Yeah.
you risk the house on one bet.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like you have to take those bets, right? You can't be too risk adverse, but at the same time, you have to calculate the potential downside, and then kind of make, sort of high, sort of good risk to reward sort of bets where you won't be risking more than your psychology can handle.
Yeah. But there's risk, and then there's like Shiba Inu,
Just gambling.
right? Like it's two different things. So people are putting their life savings into Shiba. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's
Yeah.
not risk. That's stupidity. Right? Like now everyone sees the upside of like, yeah, but I can make $1 million if it goes to this number. She's not going to that number because everyone knows that number. It's literally inevitable that it just won't go to that number. That's literally how it fucking works. But yeah, point is like when people talk about risk, like calculated risk of, when you're young, you should be taking enough to still never blow up your account, never blow up your entire life, just enough to kind of put yourself in a position where you're making those decent percentages. And in comparison to probably you would not aim to try and do that when you're older, if that makes sense. So, sorry,
yeah.
bro.
I was just going to build on that. So the amount of risks you potentially take can be based on the edge that you have, right? So, take Shiba Inu. What edge do you have in betting in Shiba Inu sort of doing better than the rest? And what do you know about Shiba Inu that other people don't know? Or are you sort of just hoping and praying, right? So if it's the latter, then you probably should be risking less. It's kind of stupid to risk the house on a big risk where you have no edge. Whereas maybe, like, let's say it's in your circle of competence, or you've been working on something for really long and you feel like you've got influence on the outcome, then maybe you'll take what other people consider big risks, but you might not be as risky because you've got that competence, you've got that sort of influence on the outcome potentially.
Yeah. And I think about it in like a probability sense. Okay. So if you're young, even if Shiba has the upside of 3,000%, the probability of you winning is so damn low, it's ridiculous. Where you can just invest in, say, Hardcore Headstart's portfolio with us, where you definitely make money. You definitely make money. The probability is considerably higher, right? So it's like, I might make a hell of a lot of money, probably going to lose everything, definitely going to make money.
Yeah.
Right? And people just don't think in those kind of parallels. They look, well, yeah, but I could make so much money. Like, yeah, but you're probably going to fucking lose. Go with the highest probability bet all the time. That's probably the one that wins.
And I think like a big part of it too is just understanding what you're actually betting on. So like, do you actually know what you're actually betting on, right? So like, for example, if you're putting money into Hardcore Headstart portfolio, do you know what you're betting on? It's tech stocks. Do you believe in that thesis? Do you believe in that idea, right? Why do you believe in that idea? Same with Shiba Inu. So you believe in dog coins. So that's like, so when you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous, right? All right, I believe in this dog coin because it sounds similar to Dogecoin and it's related to Elon Musk. It's like, all right, you're kind of like maybe stretching it a bit too far, like in terms of your investment thesis, and it's not that sound. So,
and I think like the more important thing of like when you're young it's probably not even risk. It's more just like, hey, you have no responsibilities when you're young. As in, Like you have the unique chance in the time of your life to have no mortgage, no, real big bills, no child, you haven't had a wedding yet. You just don't have that much debt if you're smart, right?
Yeah.
You have the innate ability, you have the unique ability to be able to invest as much as possible, as soon as possible, and get yourself to that 100K as quick as possible. Then past that point, it's just a numbers game. You invest in the right thing, get the right compound interest rate, you're going to be rich.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the early days, you want to reduce your spendings and invest as much as you can and start with relatively low risk investments and then educate yourself, right? And that's where you can start taking slightly more higher risk with small amounts of money as you understand it. Then you can invest more again. So I'd argue it's worthwhile investing in Shiba Inu if you're putting in a small amount and you've never done it before. Because what's the lesson behind that? It's okay. My thesis is I can make money off this thing that's got a lot of attention, right? So then you invest this tiny amount of money into it, and then you can see what happens of what you expect to happen and what actually happens. So then you can learn from that. And like you can have that same lesson with a small amount of money than you would have a lot of money, right? Like let's say if you're kind of working casual and you've got like $2,000 that you've got just set aside in savings, and you decide you want to invest that $2,000 because you want to make money. You don't have to invest the entire $2,000. You can invest say like $40 or $20 and see what happens there if you've never done that, right? We're speaking from the perspective of we've punted on a whole bunch of shit coins, made some money, lost a lot more, and realized that like there's a pattern behind it and it's sort of emotionally driven. That's why a lot of these coins aren't great investments.
Yeah, exactly right. And when you lose $40, remember that it could have been your $2,000.
100%.
Don't just be like, oh, it's only $40. Yeah, but if you invested the farm fucking house, you would have lost all the ting. All right. So you need to live vicariously, people. God dang.
Hang on to some of the things, risk the bit of the things.
Yeah, that's sweet, boy.
She's not that hard.
She's easy, but yeah. So that's an interesting segue. Interesting.
And I think like we've talked a lot about investments and money in this little bit, but I think it applies to life experiences too. So like if you're going to sort of try your hand at something you've never done before, like a small business or hobby or like running or new sport or traveling, right? Just start really small and see how it feels, right? And then you don't have to make it a massive thing. You don't, like at the start, if you're trying something new, start small. And then if you have an interest and you find it's aligned with you, then go large. And then set your goals big. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talk about, the dip itself. Like think about it. When's this coming out? Sunday. So actually the upcoming podcast for Hardcore is about thinking more. All right. And I'm only going to do a little bit of talking about it, but one of the things we're going to talk about is the dip itself, meaning, you need to think as much about what it is you're about to venture into as possible, because it's going to get very, very, very difficult. Can you mentally get past that point and continue on and become successful at it? If not, if you've done the thinking and you realize, shit, I don't care about this enough, I don't have enough passion involved, there's no way I'm getting past that really, really hard point, then quit quickly and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that idea was like pioneered by Seth Godin, but it might have been kind of, the concept might not be completely new, but that's who comes to mind when you think of that concept. And I think, just like the short concept is, anything that you tackle with ambition, there's always going to be the initial obvious sort of benefits of doing what you're doing, and like all the great things that come with running, or all the great things that come with being your own business owner, or whatever it is, they show their hand. But then as you sort of get more experience and you think you're making progress, there's always going to be that lull where it's not as rewarding, and the reward to like your effort ratio is a bit off because you're still learning and you're learning what you don't know. So to get past that slump, or the, I think, cul-de-sac that he kind of calls it in his book, you need to be able to plan ahead and think, how are you going to sort of get through that sort of stage? And most people kind of go, look, it's not linear, right? Like, I'm not learning as much as the effort I'm putting in, so I'm going to give this up. And you have to realize that like the growth path is more like this than like that, right?
Exactly. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that itself is it. And I'll tell you, when you're running fucking a marathon, dip comes pretty quick. And if you don't have the mental fortitude or the want to actually get it done, you're not going to be able to achieve it. It's simply just that simple. So, yeah, you got to have a few things right to be able to get past that dip. So, but Hang with Hardcore episode 12, we're going to go into depth and depth and depth onto that. So go check it.
Do you have any sort of closing words for like anyone who's maybe interested in doing a marathon, or someone who's looking to maybe just do their first run, like, sort of whether it's 3Ks, 5Ks, 10Ks?
Well, learn about nutrition, first of all. Learn about, running nutrition. You need to get your carbs in, boys. You need to get your electrolytes in on the run, especially if you're going on a longer run. If you're first starting out, like you literally have never run, it's that same as like do what you love until you love doing it. Go for a hike, go see some nice views, go for a walk, and then start building and building and building and building and building. I don't, just because I went and did a marathon with no practice doesn't mean I advise go do a marathon. Like that shit doesn't even it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's just because I've been through so much and I've done so much work on my mental fortitude that we had to test if it actually exists. Is it real? Do I actually have a strong mind? You may think you have a strong mind, but until you don't just get a strong mind. You get, life gives you opportunities to prove that you have a strong mind. Right. So in our case, we gave ourselves the opportunity to prove that we do have a strong mind, and it turns out we do. But yeah. So
I think that's good. I think that's good advice. Yeah, it's get out there, do it, and like there is a certain of like aim and set the bar high and really test yourself. But like, I suppose for someone who's only ever run like 30 minutes straight, like running for 5 hours might be a bit too taxing. But like, for someone who regularly runs 30 minutes, running 2 hours is within the ballpark of being achievable. So there's kind of within limits, right? Because you've run an hour and a half before, and running like 5 hours obviously is a massive feat, way harder, but it's still within the realm of sort of your physical capabilities, right? Whereas like, I think for someone who can't sort of make it past 20 minutes, running 5 hours probably is going to be counterproductive. Do you think? there's a point where it's too far.
If you've never run would not be a good idea, as far as I'm trying to find like where or how that would be a really good idea, because even mental fortitude, like you just wouldn't get through it.
Well, I don't think it's great for your body either, right? So let's say if you don't regularly walk, right? Let's say you average 15 minutes of walking every day, and that's it. Going on a 6-hour walk probably isn't going to be great for you, right?
Well, you go a 6-hour walk, because I don't think walking is that taxing. Get it. Well, yeah, you're probably right, to be fair.
If I guess that was the caveat, if you only walk 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
If you're regularly doing like half an hour, 1 hour walks, then 6 hours is within realm. But like, if you're doing sort of like 10, 15 minutes of walking is not a lot.
Yeah. Like if you walk from your car to Macca's from the car park, that's probably not going to make a 6-hour kind of walk is not going to be possible.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, go.
And the reason why I say it is because like I've had stints where I've been really active, and other stints where I've just been like a slob, right? And then I've gone on like a 2-hour hike and you can feel it in your legs, even though it's not taxing. You're like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
like why are my feet so sore?
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I like to test, like, I've been watching a lot of triathlete documentaries, triathlete, whatever the fucking word is. And it has been like ridiculously motivating, but it's like they preach one thing is like, what is the human body capable of? So just like after we went and did the marathon, we actually went for an 11 or 12 kilometer bike ride as well. Like what is the body actually capable of? And I feel fine today. And by fine, I mean everything hurts. But like, I'm not dying. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like sometimes people need to really kind of test the boundary of what is possible for their body because they never have before. But who knows?
Yeah, I think I have. I think for most people, yes, setting the bar way higher than what you currently have, and sort of breaking down what you think is possible is the most important thing. And then, once you're in like a good rhythm and you're actually like pushing and you're actually getting in the reps anyway, that's when you can talk about rest and all those other things. But Johnny said it, like most people just pussies, like just like
Exactly
push
right.
yourself harder.
Yeah. Standards are so damn low, man, that them actually achieving anything is just out of the boundary of reality. But whatever. People just believe in yourself a little bit more, because I am not that fit. And for every professional out there, they would say, don't run a marathon. You need to practice more. You need to do this. You need to do that. But shit, me and the boys went and did it. So let's go.
I think that's a good note to end the podcast in. It was, I think it's incredible to hear your experience running through the 42Ks. I'm aspiring to do the half, and then, who knows? Like, I never thought of doing the full marathon, but now that you boys have done it, you've kind of inspired me. Maybe once I tackle in my mind, like the half marathon, it's going to be done, right? Like for me, I've done 11Ks, but 22Ks is the next thing, and I just know it's going to be done. But now, like, that little seed of like, oh, maybe you'll try the marathon one day. So that's on the cards now. So I think everything that the boys have done and what we do in our friendship group inspires the rest of the group. So massive kudos to you, and thanks for making time for this podcast today, man.
Any bloody time. I love this shit, my guy. It's like one of my favorite things I do every week. So I'm so glad to be able to bring a story and hopefully inspire some people as well. It'd be pretty cool. But that's all right. Also, be scared, Marky, because the next time you come here, we're probably going to run a half marathon now.
I'm mentally preparing, and physically I'll have to get a few reps in as well.
You got training to do, because I ain't going to train. I ain't running anything else until we do that one. So get your ass over here. Let's go run.
All right. On that note, let's back her up.
Back it up, boys.
Yeah.